The Hollywood Bowl's crowd of 18,000 held its breath. Jim Morrison had reached the darkest part of his performance of The End. That Oedipal section, those disturbing lyrics, that shamanistic energy. But suddenly he stopped. He stopped completely. The band kept playing because that was Morrison's style. Pauses, silences, dramatic moments. But this was different. Morrison pulled the microphone from his mouth and walked to the edge of the stage, his eyes scanning the crowd, searching for something. Fans in the front rows followed Morrison's gaze and saw. In the third row, between her mother and father, a 6-year-old girl was crying. Sobbing, her hands over her ears, it was unclear whether she was frightened by Morrison's song or the crowd's energy. Morrison left the stage. Literally, he jumped off the stage. Security guards tried to stop him, but Morrison pushed them aside. He made his way through the crowd toward the child, knelt down, and whispered something in her ear. Just something, a few words. The child stopped crying, opened her eyes, looked at Morrison, and smiled. Morrison stood up, returned to the stage, and continued the concert. The 18,000 people there that night wondered for 50 years. What did Morrison whisper to that child? If you like stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. The summer of 1968 was a special time for Los Angeles. The Vietnam War was in full swing. Street protests were growing daily, and the counterculture movement was at its peak. The Hollywood Bowl wasn't just a concert venue. It was an escape, a gathering place, a temple where young people could share their anger and their hopes. The Doors were the most talked about band that summer. Light My Fire was constantly playing on the radio. The Strange Days album was climbing the charts. But the real talk was about Morrison himself, that unpredictable, dangerous, captivating man. The Hollywood Bowl concert was at the end of July, on a hot evening. Tickets had been sold out for weeks, and 18,000 people filled every corner of the amphitheatre. Most were young, between 18 and 25, but there were also some families, parents who had brought their children. Bringing a child to a Doors concert in 1968 was a bold decision because Morrison could do anything at any moment. The Ed Sullivan Show scandal was still fresh. The Miami incident hadn't happened yet, but Morrison's reputation was already set. This man didn't play by the rules. Jennifer Wilson was only 6 years old that night. Her mother Sarah and father Robert had argued about bringing her to the concert. Robert said, "She's too young, she'll be scared of the crowd." But Sarah insisted, "Our daughter loves music, she should see it live." Jennifer really did love the Doors. She would dance when People Are Strange played on the radio. But what Sarah didn't know was how a 6-year-old would react to a song like The End. The concert started off great. Morrison was energetic, charismatic, in control, relatively. Break On Through, Soul Kitchen, Light My Fire. The crowd went wild. Jennifer was clapping her hands in the air, smiling. Sarah relaxed. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad after all. But then Morrison said into the microphone, "This next song," and paused. A long pause. "This next song is about the end of everything." The crowd fell silent. Sarah felt something inside, a warning, a discomfort. Ray Manzarek began playing that familiar gloomy melody on the keyboard. The End. An 11-minute journey, Morrison's darkest, most disturbing song. The first few minutes were fine. Morrison's deep voice, poetic lyrics, hypnotic rhythm. Jennifer seemed a little bored but not scared. But then the song deepened. Morrison's voice changed, becoming more dangerous, more chaotic. The killer awoke before dawn. Images of violence, images of death, Oedipal themes. It was too much for a 6-year-old. Jennifer started to feel uncomfortable. She clung to her mother's arm. "Mum, I don't like this song." Sarah whispered. "It's okay, honey. It's almost over." But it wasn't. The song was only halfway through. Morrison deepened into the stage, almost entering a trance, his body contorting, his hands dancing in the air. "Father, I want to kill you. Mother, I want to..." Jennifer covered her ears and began to cry. At first quietly, then loudly, then uncontrollably. Sobs, screams, panic. Sarah tried to calm her daughter, but what could she do? They couldn't get out of the crowd. People were packed so tightly that movement was impossible. "Shh, baby, it's okay. It's just a song," she whispered, but Jennifer couldn't hear her. Her fear had become too deep. People around them turned to look, some uncomfortable, some with pitying eyes, some angry. Robert tried to pick Jennifer up, but the child cried even harder. It crossed his mind. Maybe they shouldn't have come here. Morrison was on stage, eyes closed, in the most intense moment of his The End performance. But then something happened. A sound, a child crying. Amidst thousands of people, amidst the noise of the music, Morrison heard it, or felt it. He opened his eyes. He scanned the crowd, and he saw. In the third row, a little girl was crying, her hands over her ears, her face wet with tears, her body shaking. Morrison never spoke of that moment, but the band members saw it. The look on Morrison's face changed. It wasn't anger, it wasn't pain, it was something else. Understanding, empathy, maybe guilt. Morrison stopped the song. He put down the microphone. The band kept playing for a few more seconds. Then Ray noticed Morrison had stopped and slowed down. Robbie and John did too. The music faded, stopped. 18,000 people waited in shock. What was Morrison doing? He walked to the edge of the stage, his eyes still locked on that child. Then he did something that shocked everyone. Morrison jumped off the stage. Security guards reacted reflexively, trying to stop him. "Jim, what are you doing? Get back on stage." But Morrison pushed them aside, muttering, "Get out of my way." He made his way through the crowd. People moved aside to let Morrison pass. Everyone was stunned. Everyone was curious. When Morrison reached the row where the child was sitting, Sarah froze. Was this real? Was Jim Morrison coming to his daughter? Morrison knelt in front of Jennifer. The child was still crying, her hands over her ears. Morrison gently took Jennifer's hands and pulled them away from her ears. "Hey," Morrison said, his voice soft, very different from his stage voice. "Hey, look at me." Jennifer opened her eyes and looked at Morrison through her tears. That famous face, that long hair, that leather jacket. But the eyes were different, gentle, soft. Morrison leaned forward, bringing his mouth close to Jennifer's ear, and he whispered. No one heard what he said, not even Sarah, who was only 2 steps away but couldn't hear. Morrison's lips moved, a few words, maybe a sentence. Jennifer listened. Her crying slowed, stopped. She opened her eyes, wider this time. She looked at Morrison, really looked at him, and she smiled. A small, hesitant but genuine smile. Morrison stepped back, stroked Jennifer's hair, stood up. He looked at Sarah, said nothing, but nodded. A sign of understanding, a sign of apology, perhaps. Then he turned and walked back on stage. The crowd was still in shock. No one was clapping, no one was shouting. Everyone was watching. Morrison climbed back on stage, picked up the microphone, and continued, The end from where he left off. But his voice was different, softer, less aggressive. When the concert ended, 18,000 people gave a standing ovation. But it wasn't a normal ovation. It was respect, admiration, astonishment. Morrison had done something no one expected. He had shown his humanity. That night at home, Sarah asked her daughter, "Jennifer, what did Jim say to you?" Jennifer shrugged. "I don't remember." Sarah insisted, "But he said something, didn't he? What did he say?" Jennifer thought for a long time. "I don't know, Mum, but it was something nice. I'm not scared anymore." Years passed. Jennifer grew up, went to school, graduated from college, got married, had her own child. Every anniversary, Sarah would ask, "Do you remember what Jim said?" And Jennifer's answer was always the same. "I don't remember, Mom, but it doesn't matter." But it mattered to Sarah. That moment had changed Sarah's life. The kindness shown to her daughter by a stranger, a rock star, that momentary connection. In 2019, Sarah was 78 years old and had pancreatic cancer. The doctors gave her 3 months. She moved into hospice and Jennifer visited her every day. One October day, Sarah called Jennifer to her bedside. "I need to tell you something," Sarah said, her voice weak. "About the Hollywood Bowl. About Jim Morrison." Jennifer placed her hand in her mother's. "Mum, what is it?" Sarah took a deep breath. "That night, when Jim whispered something to you, you told me you didn't remember. But then, years later, when you were 10, you told me the truth. You remembered, you always remembered, and you told me what he said. I asked you not to tell anyone, but now it's time. People need to know." Tears welled up in Jennifer's eyes. "Mum, are you sure?" Sarah nodded. "I'm sure. This story shouldn't die with me. Everyone should know how special Jim was." 2 weeks later, Sarah died. A week after the funeral, Jennifer wrote a letter to a local investigative journalist about the Hollywood Bowl concert. The journalist published the story. Then Rolling Stone picked it up. Then everyone. What had Jim Morrison whispered to Jennifer? According to what Sarah heard from Jennifer, Morrison had said, "Don't let music scare you. Music is just feelings, and feelings can't kill you. I'm scared sometimes too, every night on stage. But then I remember something. Even the darkest songs carry hope, because if we can sing them, it means the darkness hasn't defeated us. You're very brave because you came here. Don't be scared anymore. The end doesn't mean the end. It just means one door closes and another opens." Simple words, said in a way a child could understand, but so deep, so meaningful. Jennifer said in an interview with a journalist, "After that moment, I was never afraid of music again. I've even listened to the end many times as an adult. It doesn't seem scary anymore because Jim was right. Music is just feelings. And if we can feel those feelings, then we are alive." What Morrison did that night wasn't just comforting a child. He showed a stranger that fame, stage personas, and Lizard King images don't matter. What matters is connection, empathy, the compassion one human being shows another. There are hundreds of articles written about the Hollywood Bowl concert, but none of them describe this moment because no one knew about it until 2019. Now this moment is part of Morrison's legacy, not just the rock star, but the human being Morrison.